What is your reaction, first off, to this news? We just got it over the last half hour that Jamie Dimon is going to keep his post, keep his title as CEO.
Frankly, that's the decision of the board and the stockholders of JPMorgan Chase. I could care less. But what I do care about is that this recent $2 billion fiasco tells us that JPMorgan Chase, and I suspect all of Wall Street, has not learned anything from the financial disaster of a few years ago, which plunged this country into the terrible recession that we're currently in. These guys are still playing in a gambling casino, making reckless bets rather than investing in the productive economy, providing capital to companies who are producing real goods and services and creating jobs in America, where we desperately need that type of activity.
But the board gives Dimon a vote of confidence. You're saying that it doesn't bother you what the board does, but isn't that vote of confidence a direct link to Dimon overseeing what we just witnessed here, this loss that they've recorded of $2 billion? So how is there not a direct correlation to the fact that if they're not getting the message, things aren't going to change on Wall Street?
Well, right. Well, the problem is, that's right, Wall Street in general is not getting the message. What I meant to say is the internal workings of JPMorgan Chase is not of great concern to me. But what is going on in Wall Street, or whether or not they are prepared to change their ways. Look, we got 23 million people in this country who are unemployed. We have small businesses all over America who are dying for lack of affordable capital. What our financial institution is supposed to be about is making that capital available and creating decent paying jobs. The other point, Thomas, that I would make is that all of us as Americans should be worried that we are continuing down the path once again of a too big to fail scenario where these giant banks, JPMorgan Chase, Bank of America, can fail because of their reckless activity, and guess what? Taxpayers may be forced to bail them out again. So third point, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, well, I was just going to say, as you bring that up, it has been 2 years, though, since Congress passed this overhaul of financial reform rules. Many of those changes, though, they've yet to be finalized. So how does this example affect the way that regulators might turn key parts of that overhaul and implement it?
Well, obviously, it tells you that Congress has got to move much more aggressively. But in the real world, as I think most Americans know, it is not the Congress that regulates Wall Street. It's Wall Street that regulates the United States Congress. These guys are unbelievably powerful. They have unlimited sums of money. They buy and sell politicians with campaign contributions and also extensive lobbying efforts. But if you're asking me, do we need to re-regulate Wall Street? Of course, we do need to do that. More importantly, when you have today, and most people don't know this, you have the 6 largest financial institutions, which collectively have assets equivalent to 2/3 of the GDP of the United States of America, over $9 trillion. You know what? If you really want Wall Street reform, you got to break these guys up. You can't continue to have that kind of concentration of ownership in this country.
Senator, I want to get to this really quickly, because you say that part of the problem, and back to Jamie Dimon, is that he's a board member of the Federal Reserve Bank of New York. You call this a conflict of interest, and you're working on a proposal to end what you call, quote, the fox guarding the hen house. So how does that proposal remedy that kind of conflict?
Well, it basically says that when you have such egregious examples of conflict of interest, where you have the CEO, the chairman of the largest financial institution in this country, sitting on a board which is supposed to be regulating large financial institutions, I think any third grader in this country will tell you have a blatant conflict of interest. During the Wall Street bailout period, you had the Fed handing out huge amounts of zero or very low interest loans to these very same institutions whose CEOs are sitting on the boards.
Vermont Senator Bernie Sanders. Senator Sanders, nice to see you today. Thank you.
Good to be with you.
That's going to wrap things up for me. Thank you for your time. I'm going to see you back here tomorrow, 11 a.m. Eastern, every weekday morning. Until then, you can follow me on Twitter, @Thomas A. Roberts. Don't go anywhere, though. Now with Alex Wagner comes your way for the next hour.